if as a filmmaker, you get really caught up on the genre that you're making and what the landscape is and how much competition is out there, that can be I think a tricky mindset. But if you really just sort of, have an idea, have a vision, have a style and a flavor that you feel is true to yourself and you execute it. The one thing that we never heard was, oh my gosh, another reductive Western.
Get the coat. That coat right there, get it. Get the coat!
You cannot take us back to Bridge or someone will find us there. Let me get Devin to his father, and after that, you can take me and then collect the reward.
I don't care.
Look at me, listen. This is $1,500. This is yours. If you take us to Crook Springs, whatever good you think you are doing by bringing him back, you are wrong. He will die. The only hope he has is to reach his father. Please. I'm just trying to protect myself.
You lie to me again, I will take your life. Do you understand?
Yes.
Do you?
Yes, I do.
Good.
How do I know you won't just take it and ride off?
You don't.
Thank you, Mr. Reed.
Welcome to Behind the Lens today. Certainly you know him first as an actor, a number of movies and television roles, most notably, I think, Chicago Hope, one of the best hospital shows I've ever seen. I love that show, as Dr. Billy Crock. And then he made a turn into directing and producing with Very Bad Things in 1998. And now a whole rundown of credits, including Friday Night Lights. We're going to talk about that because it's being rebooted, I hear. Hancock, Battleship, Lone Survivor, Deepwater Horizon, Patriots Day. My God, I can go on and on and on. And now, also in television with Netflix, a great show called Painkiller with Uzo Aduba and Matthew Broderick a couple of years ago. And now American Primeval, I believe your first venture into the Western format. This is Peter Berg. Welcome.
Thank you. Wow. That exhausted me thinking about all that work.
Isn't it? You've worked a lot, my friend, here.
I've been here a minute. Yes, sir. I have.
Yeah, which is great. And but this is the first kind of Western, semi-Western kind of thing you've done, right?
Yes. I was a big fan of Jeremiah Johnson, Robert Redford's film.
Right. And you actually worked as an actor for Robert Redford.
I did.
In Lions for Lambs, right?
You've got a good memory.
Yeah, no, I know. I remember that movie very well. And yeah.
Yeah, that was a career defining moment for me when I was on the set and I heard cut. Hey, Pete, can I talk to you? And Redford came out from behind the monitors and was looking me right in the eye, and he was talking to me about, he was directing me. And I remember kind of leaving my body and looking down at Robert Redford directing me and thinking, wow, my dad would have been proud.
Oh, yeah. Amazing.
That was a special moment for me.
But he's another great example for you, because here's an actor who turned to directing and won an Oscar for directing. So
yeah, the thought that because Redford and Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid and The Sting and Jeremiah Johnson were huge influences on me as a kid, and Redford and Paul Newman were such icons, and to even be sitting here hearing you say that, I still have trouble accepting that. I guess it's a part of me that you have these dreams and you don't even know that they're dreams because you don't even dare dream them. Sort of that. When I was a kid watching Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid and The Sting and Downhill Racer and other films, thinking All the President's Men, and these were movies that formed me. So when Redford came out from around the monitor and was looking me in the eye and giving me direction, it was just an incredible moment. But
but Jeremiah Johnson was actually directed by Sidney Pollack, I believe. Yeah.
It was not by Redford, but it was, he was
obviously he was a star.
That was another film that as a kid I just thought was amazing and had such an adventurous spirit. To me, it wasn't even really a Western. It was something else. And It was
Not a mountain man,
a
really.
mountain man and survival and I call that kind of inch by inch filmmaking, where every inch you got to earn because you could get killed. Then you got to go to the bathroom 20 steps over there, you could get killed. You roll your ankle coming down a hill and you could die, you know. And the grit of that and the journey of Redford from this sort of city man to a respected warrior by the Native American tribes stayed with me. Um, and I talked to my buddy Mark L. Smith, who was in the process of writing Revenant at the time.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, "Are you into this kind of thing?" And I actually didn't even know he was doing Revenant.
Oh,
He said, "Oh, yes, I'm very into."
yeah.
And I think kind of like when I did the movie Friday Night Lights, when it was over, I felt like there was so much more kind of meat on the bone,
Yeah.
and I wanted to do more. So we did the series, and I think for Markel, he loved Revenant so much, but there was so much more to tell in that world. And we started talking about 1857 and the Mormon War and the fact that there were certain native tribes that were warring with each other. And sort of everybody was trying to kill everybody, basically.
Yeah.
And we thought, well, that seems like a fertile spot to start and birth an adventure tale. And then we came up with the idea of Betty Gilpin's character, Sarah, trying to move through this land with a child,
Right.
and we thought that
Away from her husband and
away from something towards something. Yeah, sure, what was true and what wasn't true, and we went through different versions of Betty's character where she was uh, disingenuous, then more disingenuous, then even more disingenuous. And we kind of landed upon a certain flavor of not necessarily disingenuous, but not entirely genuine.
Yeah.
But empathetic, and there were reasons for her not being entirely truthful. And that was, it's the fun part of
It's
it.
interesting. And the mountain man, Jeremiah Johnson, part of it really comes in with the Taylor Kitsch, who you've worked with repeatedly in many different projects. But Taylor is kind of like a mountain man here that hooks up with them and helps them along the way.
Navigate, kind of reluctantly agrees to guide them through this very treacherous terrain. And Isaac, the character that Taylor plays, is a guy just overflowing with demons, psychic scars. He's kind of a walking red flag, but she has no other choice.
Yeah.
So he's the only one that is available to help her get through this area, and they form, an odd partnership, and I think something that starts to emerge into a very unique modern family, even though it's set in 1857.
Totally. And you've done this as a limited series. This is following Painkiller, which you did as a limited series, both for Netflix. This one falls in this new genre. I mean, I feel like we're back in the 50s with Westerns are back on television, when that was a big thing in the 50s and 60s that you would see all these Western series. And now that genre seems to be back thanks to Taylor Sheridan, who I know you've worked with, produced a great movie, Hell or High Water. Wow, I love that film.
Yeah.
And Wind River,
Wind River too.
too, also great, that you did as a producer with him.
I did, yes. So Taylor's, I've got two Taylors in my life, Kitsch and Sheridan.
Yeah.
And I really love both of them. And it's been, inspirational for me to see them both come up in completely different ways. And Taylor Sheridan obviously has had so much success in this world. And I was cognizant of, A, we're good friends, and B, I was stepping into, an area that he was quite familiar with, but that we, just created found a unique space in that genre. And I was proud of that.
And this is, I would say, very dark. And
would you?
Yeah, I would say this is very dark.
You know what you're talking about.
And violent.
Whoa. Yeah, a little bit.
It is, but you're certainly used to that in a lot of your films and things are realistic. Look, you go for the real thing and
Yeah.
don't try to sugarcoat things, particularly in shows, movies like Lone Survivor, which is like powerful, but, relentless in terms of what it's showing. You're not going to give the audience much of a break there. You're showing real life.
Yeah. I think something that I now at this point, you mentioned all the stuff I've done. I have to sort of be I'm in a spot in my life where I can sort of acknowledge that A, I've done a bunch of movies, um, and B, most of the movies I do have fairly dynamic, violent, kinetic components to them.
Yeah.
And I think for a variety of reasons that I've shared with my therapist and some of my close friends, I am attracted to traumatizing events that are extremely psychically disruptive and trying to put people in those events and then help them out of them.
Yeah.
And I generally, believe that life is rough for all of us. We all have our traumas. Not all of it is as rough as what Dane DeHaan experienced in American Primeval when he had half of his scalp taken off.
Yeah.
But emotionally, I think we all have some version of that, and whether it's childhood trauma or present day struggles that we're having, we all are familiar with the idea of trauma. Um, and I think most of us, at least I do, have found that love and human connection are ways out of that trauma.
Yeah.
And I seem to reinvent that dance between trauma and love, and that's something that I've continued to do. I'm getting ready to go do it for my next film, um, and that's just where I tend to go.
What's your next film?
It's called Mosquito Bowl.
Oh,
It's
isn't that the same author as Friday Night Lights?
Yes, sir. It's Buzz Bissinger, who's my cousin, one of my mentors.
Your cousin?
Yes, he is.
Oh.
And
Wow.
he's a very inspirational human for me. And he wrote the book Friday Night Lights, and that is something that I hold very dear. He's written this extraordinary book called The Mosquito Bowl. That's a true story about a group of college All-American football players who in 1941 were in sort of the height of their blaze of glory playing college football. They had the world, in the palm of their hands. They were just glorious young men. Pearl Harbor hit, and they immediately quit football, joined the Marine Corps, and were instantly shipped out to the Pacific Theater. And they experienced trauma again. Big surprise for me. For anyone that knows about the fighting that happened in islands like Iwo Jima or Tarawa, Okinawa, this was a particular flavor of hell that uh, it's miraculous that anyone was able to survive mentally after coming back from that. But it's the story of these men um, saying goodbye to family, friends, football, peace, happiness, joy, and entering into this horrific war. Um, and it's a very bittersweet story. That's just a further reminder of the violent nature of mankind, and maybe just a reminder that war is certainly something that, if possible, should be avoided at all costs because it's a very bad thing.
That's combining two areas, war and football, that
Right.
you've been well represented by in
Yeah.
your career. But I got to ask you, since you brought it up, Friday Night Lights, I'm hearing that you guys are rebooting it, a whole new version. Is that
Right.
true?
Yeah. So we're in the middle of that now. And, the challenge with the reboot of Friday Night Lights is, it has to be an utterly unique experience.
Right.
And so what we're working on now is getting a script that feels nothing, absolutely nothing like the original series. It's 2025. We are an evolved species compared to pre cell phone and the world that we lived in in the early 90s when we made the original. So we're trying to figure out how to completely reinvent it but preserve the heart and soul of that's Esso, by the way.
This is Esso.
Thank you for allowing him to join the interview.
Hello, Esso. Yeah,
He's a good dog.
he went to Roland.
He's my co-director. He's everywhere I go. But can you sit down, please? Um,
Yeah, so
trying to preserve the heart and the soul, and the inherent DNA of Friday Night Lights, which to me about community
which
and
you
love
did
and spirit.
twice. I mean, and the movies and
Yes,
television,
yes,
and both hugely successful.
they were successful. And the movie was quite different from the book, which was a tremendous book, really beautiful book. The movie was different from that. The show was different from the movie, and the reboot will be different from all three of those. So
Yeah.
it's an exciting challenge.
Wow.
And just the constant requests to bring it back have been heard. We just don't want to bring it back in a way that doesn't feel like a real reinvention.
Yeah, exactly. But working in a limited series, is that to you just like making a long movie, or is it a format that you really like for different reasons?
Yeah, for me, I find it to be uniquely challenging. It's like making, in the case of Primeval or Painkiller, you're literally making a 6-hour movie.
Yeah.
Which is, we shot for 135 days for American Primeval up in the different native reservations, or in New Mexico. We were up there with the windstorms, snowstorms, rainstorms, heat waves, rattlesnakes being pulled out of rocks,
Wow.
people getting hurt. Very vigorous shoot. And it just kept going and going and going.
Well, the strike hit, right?
Two strikes.
Two strikes.
Two strikes hit. We were shut. SAG strike shut us. Which was first now? SAG.
Writers.
Writers. We survived SAG. Okay, we shut down at the end of the writers' strike, and then SAG extended it. But for a director, it's an incredible challenge, and it's just a longer shoot. It's a bigger shoot. You have many more balls that you have to sort of juggle. And for me, what's so satisfying is you just get to go so much deeper with characters, and you get to make little turns and twists that you might not get to do in a 2-hour feature. That being said, I'm excited to go back and just do a feature, which Mosquito Ball is a movie.
Oh.
But hey, I've always been kind of weird in that I direct commercials and documentaries and unscripted series and scripted series and movies, and I've directed a few plays, and they're all kind of equally challenging and fun and satisfying to me, and they let me be creative, and I don't always care what it is. I just like it.
You're like the commercials, like you did, not just commercials, but Super Bowl commercials.
Yeah.
Those are big deals.
Those are big deals. They are, but I've done some really stupid little commercials that you've probably never seen that are also in a weird way challenging and complex. And to tell a little story in 30 seconds is, I don't know what's wrong with me, but I kind of love it all. And so I've been able to move through these different mediums and play in these different sandboxes, and I don't really separate it. It's all just kind of one big thing that I'm getting to direct, and I love it, and I feel lucky that I get to do it. And I don't know what the hell I would do if I wasn't doing this. So,
well, maybe act.
I like acting too. Yeah, I give myself a big. Usually, I just give myself a little, like almost a one line, a little one line here, 2 lines there. But in Primeval, I gave myself a couple of scenes, and as we got closer to doing it, I had such a panic attack because I really didn't know if I could still act. I was worried that I wouldn't be able to remember the lines.
Wow.
And I really enjoyed doing it.
Yeah.
And my crew helped me so much. I like Hanali, the one of our set dressers, costume person. She kind of directed me. And she knew I was scared.
Yeah.
But so she was like in my trailer, like running the lines with me and making sure the clothes got ready. And she was standing just off camera, and people were saying action cut, and they were. I was looking at her, and she was like, "You got it." And I'm so that was a
Well, does that whet the appetite to maybe
oh man, I don't know.
somebody else?
I don't know. A little bit.
Yeah. You were
Th-
so good as an actor. You really were, and you had a good run.
I always said if I had Brad Pitt's calves, and I've told him this, I would have had Brad Pitt's career and I would have Brad Pitt money. He has bigger calves than me. And I told him that. Like, he's lucky. He's lucky that genetics didn't give me his calves. But I do love acting. I think that my time acting definitely made me a better director
Yeah.
and makes me much more empathetic to what an actor goes through.
I'll see if he has questions too.
I forget it. Eso likes you. Eso likes you.
Yeah, so
Um, he'll settle down. Sit down. I think that acting has definitely made me a better a filmmaker and able to talk to actors in ways and play around with them and get them to improvise and things like I might be doing a scene and Essa might literally walk into the middle of the shot and we'll just keep going.
just improvise.
Yeah, and just go with it. Just go with it. But yeah, I'm sort of available.
Okay. All right.
If Sean Baker called, I would take that call.
That's good.
So I don't know.
There was some controversy over the Mormon community over this American Primeval, and you used some real characters in this too. Brigham Young being one key. And did you find they were what were they complaining about?
They were complaining. The Mormon Church, members of the Mormon Church. First of all, if you go and search out comments, there were a lot more positive comments from Mormons saying, "Wow, somebody's telling the truth
Right.
about the Mormons Meadows Massacre, which was a horrific, horrific crime committed by members of the LDS Church, killing 145 pioneers, men, women, and children. The Mormons that committed the crime dressed up as Native American Indians, try and put the blame on the Indians. And then it was bad, really bad. And we did portray that and present it. And there was a response to that.
Yeah.
The fact that Brigham Young was presented as a man that was willing to fight for his church rubbed some members of the LDS the wrong way. He was willing to fight for his church. And in many ways, I respect Brigham Young for being willing. If you look at all the persecution the Mormons occurred prior to 1857 in upstate New York, in Georgia, in Illinois, where Joseph Smith, their leader, was murdered.
Right.
This was a persecuted religion. Brigham Young fled to Utah in the 1840s and basically said, "We're going to stay here." Salt Lake Valley was desolate. Nobody was living there. It was not Salt Lake City that we know today. Brigham was like, "We'll stay here. Nobody will ever come for us.
Right.
We'll be at peace." People started coming. The U.S. government and President Buchanan started coming, and Brigham Young said, "We're going to fight back." And so for that, I respect him, and I feel like we do show that. Had a lot of very positive response from the members of the LDS Church, but there were others that didn't like it so much.
What are you going to do? You're a documentary filmmaker, I know, but this is not, people get confused. You take some liberty when you're doing a story like this.
Yes, we do. However, the Mormon Meadows Massacre, the Meadows Massacre of 1857, there were no liberty. The only liberties taken with how we presented the Meadows Massacre was that we actually made it less horrific than it was.
Wow.
We did it. We showed it as one massacre that happened very quickly. In reality, it happened over 4 days, where this group of pioneers were surrounded and they were trying to starve them out. And finally, what they did, the Mormons, was they raised a surrender flag, said, "Let's come in and talk to you." They came in, they talked to the pioneers from Arkansas, and they said, "Look, these Native Americans want to kill you. We're going to get you out of here. Let's get the men over here, the women over here, and the real young children over here. Walk out with us." They started walking out. On one of the Mormon signals, they turned and killed everyone, except for the very young children under 6, who they brought into Mormon families. We didn't show that.
Yeah.
So we did take some license, but with the Meadows Massacre, no.
No, and it's a very entertaining show too. I mean, you found something that I haven't seen before, which is really hard to do in that genre.
Yeah,
I have to say.
Well, and for me, the fact that Brigham Young was trying to buy this Fort Bridger, and which is all true, he wanted to buy it because he knew the U.S. Army was coming, and if they came, they would base out of this fort, and they'd be able to get strong and bring lots of men and eat and relax and drill. So he was determined to buy the fort, which we show, which was actually quite entertaining. Him bartering with Jim Bridger with Shea Wiggum,
Yeah, yeah.
and he bought it. He finally overpaid, bought the damn thing, and burned it to the ground in second, so that the U.S. Army couldn't come in. And that was actually a really smart move because it bought him time to keep the army out to fortify. And by the time the army was about to really come, it was 1858, 1859. The Civil War had popped off.
Oh my
So
God.
all these troops were now they didn't care about Brigham Young anymore. They were able to divert. They all diverted to the East Coast, and I believe that. I can't prove it, but I believe, and I'm not the only one, that the Civil War saved Brigham Young and the Mormon Church.
It's really interesting, and the treatment of Native Americans here is really well done too, in terms of your actors
Yeah.
and the Shoshone and the authenticity of it. You really worked hard on that. Did you have consultants?
Yes, we had multiple consultants, and I definitely tip my hat to Netflix on this one because Um, if you want to be correct and you want to do the research and you're dealing with multiple tribes, in our case it was Shoshone, Paiute, and Ute tribes. Those were three
Right.
completely different tribes with some crossover and some language crossover, but different languages, different ways of dressing, different social organizations. Shoshone had a female chief. I got criticized by some people for like, this is ridiculous. There's a Shoshone female chief, Winterberg. Well, there was. She was a chief. She was actually a lesbian, and she was the
Oh
chief.
my gosh.
She had 3 wives. She's a fascinating character, and she was
Wow.
real. And so Mark L. Smith, I would laugh and we'd be like, "This is preposterous. A female chief. Okay, you can't win, right?"
Yeah, yeah.
But to get that right and to be authentic with that stuff and to get the details that Netflix said, okay, do it. That means you've got to hire multiple consultants, different language consultants, different clothing consultants, different weapons consultants, food consultants who could show us and make sure that the food was the right food. And it looked to, so there were vegetarians and there were meat eaters and there were some of these tribes were fishermen, some weren't. And so we had tons of consultants on the script. We probably had 10 different consultants, and they were right in there with us, and they were the bosses. Whenever we were dealing with the Native American component, we would very quickly say, you guys tell us what's right. If it's wrong, call cut. We'll try and fix it. And I'm very proud of the consultants, our key department heads, makeup, hair, props, set design.
Oh yeah.
Everybody, all the department heads work so closely.
The music's great. Yeah.
That's Explosions in the Sky.
Who you've used?
Yeah, they're my favorite.
They're your go-to.
Yeah, they get you.
John Williams.
They get you. They get me in the feels. I feel it. They're wonderful, and we're getting ready to do the Mosquito Bowl together, and
Oh, that's right.
they were a huge part of Friday Night Lights and Lone Survivor, and
Yeah.
just very emotional. They call themselves tragically triumphant music. It's heartbreaking, but it still makes you want to like get up and go.
You like to work with the same people. Mark Wahlberg, like 5 movies.
I do. I think there's a lot. Making a film is tricky, and egos are tricky, and human beings are tricky, and there's a lot of pressure, and sometimes it goes really well, and sometimes it's a horrific disaster, and I've had both, and I've learned that if I trust you and know you and know kind of where I can count on you and maybe where I can't, at least I know. And so that when you get into the middle of it, the middle of the battle,
Right.
not to compare movie making with war because you can't, but it's a high pressured environment on many levels. So for me, when I found talented people who are throwing fastballs in their job, I'm like, let's go, and I want talented people who are also willing to be innovative and to evolve and to grow. So we're not just doing the same thing over and over again. And I'm like, hey man, I know you, you know me, I trust you, you trust me. Are you up for a new adventure? And if they say yes, I'm like, great, because I know I can count on you. And that means a lot to me.
Got to go to the well a lot.
But every once in a while, I love being like, oh gosh, I'm going to take a chance. I'm going to hire you. I don't know you. Because it takes a minute to get to know someone, if you ever can, right?
Yeah.
Never really know someone. But to know, when you're going to hire someone, everybody's charming,
Yeah.
I'm miraculously the most interesting, fascinating person. Almost everything I say is right. And and it's like,
Yeah.
I'm like the really beautiful woman, and everyone's just, I'm right.
Yeah, well, you know that from being an actor, probably going.
Yeah, you're a liar. You'll lie. I would lie. I would say anything to get a role. I could speak any language, I had all sports skills. I was a chess master, and I could juggle.
Yeah.
Like, no problem. And then yeah, you will lie. And so when you're trying to decide who you want to work with, you have to know they're lying to you
Yeah.
because they want a job.
Sure.
And they might really want the job and believe in what they're saying, but they want a job.
Yeah.
So you got to be careful. And I do, I work with Mark Wahlberg and I work with Taylor Kitsch and other people in the crew, Explosions on the Sky and others. And every once in a while, I'm like, oh shit, I'm gonna just take a chance.
Yeah.
And sometimes it works, and sometimes I'm like, oh boy, I got this one wrong.
Oh, no, you get most of them right, I think. You wouldn't keep working in this town if you got them all wrong.
Okay.
Well, amazing. The show is limited series on Netflix, American Primeval. You can see it now. This is Peter Berg. This is Esso, and this has been Behind the Lens.
Love
Thank
it
you so much.
Thanks for letting us join us.
Hope you had a good time, Esso.